Good morning. This is Hive Coffee. I'm your host. I hope everybody's having a fantastic Monday morning. I'm going to make some coffee shortly, but what I wanted to do was read to you something that I found last night. I didn't find it exactly, but I requested it, and I was given something extremely thoughtful to consider, and I've been thinking about it all night, and I'm thinking about it this morning, and I'm going to read it to you so that you can think about it too. So, with that, let's get started. You can see, of course, the price of Bitcoin is about $47,613. You can watch the charts in the background. So my question was, in 2032, what kind of jobs will humans work? And TextSynth generated this response. In 2032, humans will be either extinct or a species vastly different from how we are today. It is possible that the future will also be marked by advances in medicine that could eliminate aging and other human diseases. However, I predict that in the not-too-distant future, in the coming decade, human civilization will be vastly different. I don't mean that we'll all be working on computers. I mean that our species will have developed into a new species. Human-machine civilizations will not be part of our future. They will have become a new species. For over a century, humans have been creating and exploring technology that has enabled us to change the physical and social environments that we live in. We are beginning to explore a parallel universe that we never even thought of or could have dreamed of. However, I have been pondering what it will be like when we get to the end of the road with technology and we look back. What can we learn from the history of past technological advances? I've developed a theory about this that I am confident in. As technology continues to advance, we will create and invent new devices that allow us to take our physical form to new levels. We will create devices that connect our minds to machines, and eventually, the machines will surpass the minds that created them. Eventually, all of humanity will merge with the machines. Eventually, we will create a new species. That new species will be a form of being. The current human being will be a species among species. Eventually, we will be no different than a jellyfish or a star. You've probably heard the phrase, "You've never met a robot you didn't like." This statement is true in that as long as you aren't afraid of it, you will find that many robots and machines are nice. Well, that was not what I expected. Extremely thoughtful. What do you think? Please leave some comments. So I continued with my inquiry. In 2032, will humanity celebrate peace? This was the response I received. In 2032, will humanity have the means of understanding itself? That is, will humanity in 100 years be sufficiently close to having a unified set of philosophical and scientific theories by which it could understand itself? Or will it still be arguing about what it is and what it means to exist? If so, will it be arguing about whether it still matters to exist, or whether it should cease to exist? If this sounds like a foolish question, then please keep in mind that it's not. This is exactly the question humanity is being asked today. In a century, will people still argue about what we are and what we mean to exist? To understand the depth of our current moral quandary requires just a glimpse into our near future. The answer to the question above depends on what sort of information is made available to the populace in 2032. For a time, most information will be available only to the elites. Those of us who live in the 21st century will have access to information that was previously available only to the top tiers of society, only to a tiny subset of humanity. We will all have access to that knowledge and the theory to understand it. How will this affect what we think about the meaning of life? Well, it will affect how we think about the meaning of life in the way that the availability of information affects how we think about the meaning of any number of topics: politics, love, the environment, religion, spirituality, art. All those things will come under far greater scrutiny than they are under today. Consider what that means. The people who are deciding how we will understand life in 2032 will be the same people who are deciding how our children's lives will be lived. Our children and their children will, in 2032, be deciding how our lives will be lived. How will we think about ourselves? How will we feel about the meaning of life? Do we believe that we'll still have a meaning in life? Or is our meaning tied to something outside us? Is this the end of humanity? Or the end of our sense of self? I can't help but feel a bit sad about it. It's easy to feel like our current state of mind is natural. We are as comfortable with life as we've ever been. There are more people on the planet than ever. We don't think about the consequences of our actions. We feel as though we are being pushed forward by the world around us. Yet, if we are looking at this period as just a natural part of the evolution of our species, we have to ask, why are we experiencing this? What is it about the way we are living now that makes it so comfortable? So I pondered on this last night, and I shared this. And I think a few people have read it, but I wanted to know more. And so I continued. And this is the response that I received. Many people don't question their beliefs. We accept a certain set of values as our own. We accept their existence as true. We don't even think about them. So it's understandable if that's all we ever do. We may not think about the things that truly matter to us as a culture, but the implications of that are profound. When we stop questioning, we stop progressing. We stop questioning the things that need to be questioned. We stop questioning the things that are true. We stop questioning who we are and what we mean to exist. So what will humanity think about in 2032? If we stop thinking about the meaning of life, what will we have instead? What we will think about 2032 is what we think about now. What we know now will become commonplace. I'll close with a question. What do you think? Will the world we live in 2032 be different than the world we live in now? And what do you think that difference will be? I would add the caveat. I don't think it's going to be what we think about in 2032, rather. What people think about in 2032 is what we will think about in 2032. I agree we have reached a certain level of knowledge and technology that is at the level to understand all of the implications of our actions as a species. We understand that if we are affecting our own future, we understand that the quality of our lives as humans will be in part determined by how we treat each other and the planet. But there will always be more to learn, and more to understand about our universe. We will always be striving for more. We will always be trying to understand what makes us and our lives what we are. If we want to see what life will be like in 100 years, we will need to begin looking now. I think that we will be as satisfied with life as we are now. We will simply have greater access to knowledge and a greater understanding of what kind of a world we want to live in. I think that we will be just as capable of making that world and our lives within it the best it can be, as we are now. It would be nice to think that the answers will come to us, and it would be nice to think that what we know now will be everything we need to know. But I don't think either of those things will be true. The world that we live in now has a lot of things we need to look into, and I don't think that we will all have a united understanding of what that world will be and what we can do to make it better. I think that we will only have an idea of what we need to learn in the next 100 years and what we need to understand in order to have an effective plan to make things better. We need a basic understanding of how our universe works and how to make our place within that universe a better place. We need to understand that we are a species and not merely our individual lives. Once again, if you have any thoughts about this, please leave it in the comments. This was generated by TextSynth. Text completion using large language models. GPT-J is a 6 billion parameter English model. It has some abilities in other languages too, including computer languages. Boris is a fine-tuned version of GPT-J for the French language. GPT Neo X20B is the largest model. More information is available in the documentation. Can you see into the future, GPT-J? What do you understand? Let's take a look and see if this is the case. The idea of trying to predict what is going to happen in the future is an idea based on two different concepts. Future. What is going to happen next? Future. What will happen? As a result, trying to predict the future can be complicated since there are too many factors to consider. I'm going to try and figure out how we can start to look into the future. First, let's think about what we think about when we think about the future. How will my day, week, month, year go? The first thing that comes to mind when I think about the future is the answer to that question. After that, I get stuck with other questions such as, will I be happy? Will my relationship be healthy? Will my finances be stable? This means that we see the future through ourselves. Will my day, week, month, year be good, bad, average? The next question I get is what my life will be like when it comes to my relationship, my finances, and my health. We've talked a bit about self-improvement and self-love already, and we need to find more about how to see the future through love and appreciation. How will I be when I'm 40? As a society, we think about this future as a set of events and milestones in our lives. However, as with everything else, each person goes through their own set of struggles and milestones. In my case, I'm sure that 40 will be a milestone in my life, as my life will be the longest I've lived up until this point. But I'm not sure about how the rest of my life will be. I'm sure that 40 will be a great time, as I'll be married and have children. I'm not sure about the rest of it. When will I retire? This is a difficult one because the future is not black and white. People retire for different reasons. There are those who decide to retire early, while others decide to retire later in life. There are other reasons why people go into retirement, like having an active and fulfilled retirement like my grandfather who died at the age of 90. Having a poor health that makes it hard to work. Retiring because your company is out of business or downsizes its workforce. People retire for different reasons, but we all think about the future in terms of age. We see it as the time when people will be retired, have an active life, be happy and healthy. However, you have to keep in mind that you are not in the future. you are living in the present. As a result, you might think you know the future, but you're not there. In the above example, the man is in a future where he lives with his wife for 40 years and then retires. But in the present moment, he is in the middle of planning his retirement. He doesn't know what will happen next, so he's living in the future through himself and others. This also means that in the future he might find that his life will not be the same, and the timeline may change. The future is a product of the present moment. So you see, it's not so much about seeing the future, but it's about knowing that it is a product of the present moment. If we have to think about it, seeing into the future is actually the present moment being projected into the future. It's a future moment that I imagine right now. So when we go into the future because our present moments are projected into the future. This is what I mean when we say we can't see the future. The future is always in the present. See the future through love. We need to learn to see the future through love. For this reason, we need to learn how to see into the future. See into the future through love. To see into the future through love, we need to appreciate and value others. We need to see the present through them. This means that we go into the future with others and we appreciate them. If we don't do this, if we don't see into the future through love and appreciation, instead we see into the future through self-interest, as in, will I get what I want? Will I have the money I need to do what I want? Will I have a life that I want? Seeing into the future through love is about seeing into the future with appreciation for the present moment. This means that when we go into the future with others, and we appreciate them. In the above example, if the man was to be happy and grateful for 40 years retirement, then he might have an amazing and wonderful life. Instead, he's trying to figure out how he was going to be when he is 40 years old. This is because he is not appreciating his wife and children. Instead, he is thinking about it from his own perspective, as in, I will be alone because my wife will have another man in her life. I will have to spend money because I don't have enough to retire. I will have no one to share things with. When we start to see the future through love, we start to live in the present through the others. We see the present moments of others, and we appreciate them. It's not just a romantic concept, but it's true. It's a matter of finding love in others and realizing the present moments that are in others. See into the future through value and love. So, to see into the future, we need to realize that it is a product of the present moment. As a result, we should look into the future with love, not with hate, which brings us to the concept of value. Value in the present is a moment. As a result, if we want to know about the future, we need to know what value is. Value is about the present moment. Value is about seeing others and their present moments. The man who is trying to figure out what will happen in his 40s cannot see into the future. Instead, he is only thinking about his own life and wants. He is not seeing into the future. He is trying to do so. We need to value others more than our wants. As a result, we need to start to think about the value of others. As a result, we can see into the future by looking at others and what they mean. It's not about getting or achieving something. Instead, we are about seeing into the future by finding out what others mean. This is because others matter. But they are so much more than that. Seeing into the future. So how can we see into the future? We can look into the future by seeing into the present. This means that when we want to see into the future, we have to look into the future through the present. To see into the future through the present, we need to make sure that we look into the present through the eyes of others. This is a concept based on a simple concept. When we look into the present through others, we start to see into the future. This means that when we live in the present through others, we live in the present through others. We don't think about ourselves as in, I'm in a future and I'm in a present. Instead, we start to see into the present by seeing into the future. As a result, when we live in the present through others, we are also living in the present through others. For example, if we want to see into the future, we need to start looking into the present through the eyes of others. This means that when we live in the present, we live in the present through others. As a result, when we live in the present, we see into the future. This is how we look into the future through the present. So, how do we live in the present through others? This depends on the people we surround ourselves with. You can't see into the future when you're only thinking about yourself. When you think about the future, you're not thinking about the present moment. You are only thinking about yourself. You are only thinking about what is going to happen to you, your family, and your life. However, when you start to live in the present through others, you live in the present through others. You become aware of others through their present moments. This means that you start to see into the future by looking into the present through others. If you don't start to do this, then you will live in the future through only yourself and your wants. This means that when you think about the future, you're only thinking about your own wants. As a result, you're only thinking about yourself and your present. You're not thinking about the past, but you're only thinking about the future. This is because you are trying to see into the future. You are only thinking about what will happen to you in the future. You are only thinking about your own life and your future. This is what happens when we see into the future. We are only thinking about our wants and we're only thinking about the future. As a result, we're not seeing into the present. Instead, we're only thinking about the future and ourselves. If you want to see into the future, you have to live in the present through others. You have to be aware of others and what they mean. When you start to see into the future by living in the present, you start to see into the future. Living in the present and the future. So what happens when we see into the future through love and value? We start to live in the present by living through others. This is because we start to see into the future through love and value. This is because we start to look at others through their present moments. Instead of only thinking about ourselves, we start to appreciate others. Instead of only thinking about the future, we start to think about the present through others. This is what happens when we live in the present through others. By living in the present, we live in the present through others. This is the essence of what it means to live in the present through others. We start to appreciate others and our present moments. This is because we see into the future through love and value. We start to live in the present. Thank you for listening. Please leave your comments below. What do you think? What will the world be like in 2032?